Welcome back to Fighting Words. I'm your host, Karisa Maxwell, joined as always by senior combat writer Andreas Hale and senior combat editor Tom Gray. It is that time of year again. We have the new 25 under 25 rankings heading to Sporting News on Thursday. And it's an exciting list this year because 4 out of the top 5 fighters have actually aged out. They're old news. And of course, that is Shakur Stevenson at number 2, Teofimo Lopez at number 3, Boots Ennis at number 4, and Virgil Ortiz Jr. at number 5, which leaves those 4 spots empty and ready to be filled with new talent. But of course, that number 1 spot remains Devin the Dream Haney. Now, this is his last year to be on that list, so he will be the reigning number 1 25 under 25 for the past 2 years. But let's talk about the talent that's sneaking up. In place in those 2, 3, 4, and 5 spots, we have, a drum roll, please. We've got Bam Rodriguez at number 2, Jared Anderson at number 3, Ryan Garcia moving up to number 4, and Keyshawn Davis at number 5. Now, I know there had to be a lot of collaboration with our combat team for you all to agree on this list, and there may have been some fighting words exchanged in that process. But I want to know from you guys, who do you feel made the biggest leap and made the biggest impact in the sport to really earn that spot in the top 5 rankings?
Well, I like Jared Anderson. He's maintained his 100% knockout streak, jumping from number 11 last year to, like you say, number 3 this year. It's been a long time since I've been excited about an American heavyweight. I'd probably begin back to Evander Holyfield. There's not been much to write home about since, and Holyfield, I think, is almost 60 now, so that says it all. But I like the agility. The punching power is obvious, backed up by the knockout ratio. He can switch southpaw. He's a dynamite heavyweight. We need to see him chin checked. I mean, more than any other division in the sport, you need to see a heavyweight absorb a direct hit before you can get too excited. That's not happened yet, but it will definitely happen over the next year or two, because he is heading into elite level heavyweight territory. So we'll see what it brings. You know, it's a long way to go. He's still very, very early on in his career, but very excited about him. I think he is absolutely terrific.
Yeah, for me, it's Keyshawn Davis. If I remember correctly, I think it was 15 last year. He's jumped up to the top 5. And the reason behind that is that, you know, it's a similar thing as Jared Anderson. They haven't really been tested, but he passes the eye test. He's nasty. He's got power in both hands. He finds his range very quickly. He figures out his opponents. You can watch him dissect his opponents with his ring IQ, which is really high for a fighter this young. Keyshawn Davis has all the potential in the world to be a pound-for-pound fighter because he's in a very stacked lightweight division, and some guys are departing. But he can find his way moving up through multiple weight classes, and I think he'll make a huge impact now and to make the list in the top 5. But I feel like over the next few years, we'll be having pound-for-pound conversations about Keyshawn Davis. He is a filthy, filthy man, and I like him a lot.
He reminds me a lot, actually, of Floyd Mayweather at 130 and 135. You know, he's got all the moves inside, outside, great punch variety, great hand speed. He's an electrifying talent.
Let's go back to Devin Haney for a second, because like I said, he is the reigning number 1 on our 25 under 25 list. He's undefeated. He's undisputed. He's got all the titles ahead of him. But the question, of course, now is, you know, he didn't really have a great showing against Lomachenko. There's a lot of debate about who actually won that fight. But a lot of people are comparing him to Canelo at 25 and where his career was at that point. So I'm hoping I can get a little bit of a sparring match between the two of you by asking, is Devin Haney better at 25 than Canelo Alvarez was at 25?
It's super close in my view. I will edge slightly, ever so slightly, towards Canelo, because I believe Canelo by that age had beaten Austin Trout, unified world titles. Austin Trout was a terrific fighter going back to, I think, 2012. Then after a loss to Floyd Mayweather, which was no embarrassment, and even though Mayweather was 36 years old, you're talking about one of the most sophisticated prize fighters in boxing history, and stylistically, he was just all wrong for Canelo, and in my view, always would be. But Canelo's comeback from the Mayweather defeat was Erislandy Lara, who absolutely no one around 154 pounds wanted to fight at that time. Now, you'll get Canelo detractors who say that Erislandy Lara won that fight. they need to go back and watch it. I don't think he did. I think that Canelo legitimately won that fight. So if you're looking at that's Canelo's 2 best wins before he's 25 is Austin Trout and Derislandy Lara. If you look at Haney's best wins, it would take a strong argument to say it was anything other than George Kambosos twice, so he's done that over 24 rounds, and Lomachenko. Lomachenko was viewed as the smaller man coming in, a big underdog in the fight. This was meant to be Haney's setup for greatness, and as you said, it didn't go great. George Kambosos, is he elite? Not too sure. I think world level would be more accurate. So because of what Canelo had accomplished at that point, despite the fact he didn't get all the belts, and let's face it, Haney got them on one fight, or the majority of them in one fight, and that was against Kambosos. I think Canelo edges Devin Haney at this point.
No. Devin Haney is better than Canelo at 25. Look, yes, he is the undisputed lightweight champion, but there are a few other things. Canelo didn't really prove himself until after the Lara fight, because after Floyd, I think he fought Alfredo Angulo, who was pretty much washed up by then. And yeah, then he fought Lara and he beat Trout, which are 2 very good wins, don't get me wrong. But it wasn't until Canelo, who was outsizing his opponents at that time, he was huge against Miguel Cotto a few years later, but it wasn't until the Triple G fight that a lot of us put him on a pound-for-pound list. Devin Haney's there now, right now. Whatever you think about the Lomachenko fight, he won. It was close. Some people thought he lost, but it was against an opponent that was arguably already a pound-for-pound fighter. Now, granted, he is a narrow decision, but Canelo lost to Floyd Mayweather. We all saw it. He lost. And you could argue that he lost to Lara. Now, Haney's also beaten Jojo Diaz. He's also beaten Linares. He beat Kambosos, but he beat the brakes off of Kambosos. Right now, I'd say that there's a big ceiling for Devin Haney. I don't know if it'll be as high as Canelo after the age of 25, but if we're talking about this particular age, and right now, Devin Haney's better than Canelo. He still has room to grow. He has not reached his physical prime yet. He doesn't have as much mileage as Canelo does, but I think if you compare these two at their respective ages, it's Devin Haney.
Good argument, even if I don't agree.
Now let's talk about our number 3, Jared Anderson. Now, we've talked a lot about Jared in previous episodes about how he's kind of the dark horse of the heavyweight division. And he has a fight coming up this weekend. He's actually making his homecoming on Saturday in Toledo against former heavyweight champion Charles Martin. Now, Jared Anderson, he's 14-0. He has a 100% knockout rate, and he's only 23 years old. Kind of insane. So naturally, let's put him up against another fighter that is a little bit past his prime. Can Jared Anderson beat the 33-year-old 25-3 with a 79% knockout rate, Anthony Joshua, in a heavyweight fight?
Look, I'm very high on Jared Anderson, as I've said, but it's mostly in terms of being excited for the future. He's not had step up yet, so it's very difficult to analyse, if you see what I'm saying. He's not had the step up yet that would show he can deal with someone as seasoned as Anthony Joshua. But if he hits him and hits him clean, then Anthony Joshua could go out like a porch light. It's as simple as that. But I mean, it's heavyweight boxing. That could happen now, or it could happen in 2 or 3 years from now. But I'm not too sure he beats him at this point. I think the way things are going, give it 12 to 18 months, and I think that Joshua would be prime for the taking. But right now, we're talking about him getting in against Charles Martin, who, to be quite honest, despite being a former champion, is not an elite player. He's taking this fight on late notice. Very difficult to gauge at this point, Karisa, but I'll go for Big Baby taking down Joshua in 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, no, I'm not ready to say that yet. Listen, Anthony Joshua lost to Alexander Usyk, who was arguably the best fighter in the world twice. There's nothing wrong with that. And he lost to Andy Ruiz, which was a nightmare for him that particular night, but he acclimated himself and won the rematch. No, Jared Anderson hasn't been punched in the mouth yet, and Anthony Joshua punches really hard. And I'm not necessarily sure if Jared Anderson could take that punch at 23. Look, we said a lot of things about fighters like Daniel Dubois, and we saw what happened to him. Like we see what happened to Joe Joyce. Look, it's you have to get punched in the face by a big puncher. And I love Jared Anderson. I think he's a special fighter. We have him ranked very highly on this list for a reason. But if you ask me right now, without seeing somebody get punched in the face, I'm that guy. I can't give you anything until you show me what happens when you get punched in the mouth one good time. And Anthony Joshua punches everybody in the mouth. He's not as slick as Alexander Usyk, at least not yet. So right now, if they were to fight, I'm picking Joshua to stop him. But I don't know. It's a great unknown. He's got to show me that chin, and I don't know if we'll see it. I don't even know if we're going to see it in 12 to 18 months. They got to put him in there with somebody sooner or later because you don't want it to be a surprise that he gets punched in the mouth and he can't take it. But we'll have to wait and see. But right now, I'm still going to pick Anthony Joshua. People are so down on Anthony Joshua. He lost to the best fighter in the world twice. Like, what are we doing?
So who should be the person who punches Jared Anderson in the mouth then? Because as we know, the heavyweight division has been terrible at making these fights happen. It has just been a lot of he said, she said rumors. And honestly, I'm tired. I'm tired of it. And I don't believe anybody, and I have serious trust issues. But if Jared Anderson can make that big fight happen to really prove himself, who should that opponent be?
I would like to see him in against someone like Daniel Dubois. Even though Dubois lost to Joe Joyce, he is still, physically, he's a colossus. He punches hard enough to test Anderson's whiskers, no doubt about it. If it looks like Joyce is going back in with Zhang, you could have the winner of that fight against Jared Anderson. So there is fights there against guys who can whack, that can pass the test that Andreas is talking about. So those guys would be ideal. That's the kind of step that you're needing before you can talk Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury or Alexander Usyk. He has to go in against someone in the 5 to 10 range, or the 6 to 10 range.
Yeah, Tom, you stole my answer. I was going to say Daniel Dubois. That's why I brought him up. So Daniel Dubois would be the perfect opponent. If it isn't him, there's a guy that's lingering right now that's supposed to be in a fight, but he's not. Andy Ruiz. I'm very curious what a Jared Anderson-Andy Ruiz fight looks like. If Andy Ruiz is not going to fight Deontay Wilder, I don't know what the hell Andy Ruiz is doing with his life these days. I'd like to see Andy Ruiz versus Jared Anderson at some point in the next year. I think it'd be a fantastic fight because the one thing we do know about Andy Ruiz is that he can also take a punch. And if you could take a punch, it makes things very interesting for a fighter of Jared Anderson's size, speed, and strength who relies on knockout power. We get to test his gas tank. That's a fight I would love to see. Hopefully it happens sooner than later because Jared Anderson is going to need to step up. I don't want to see him fighting cans for the next 3 years. I don't want him on the Deontay Wilder plan. I don't. I just don't want him on the 49 knockout street plan against a bunch of tomato cans and cab drivers. I don't need it. Get him in there sooner than later. Give me somebody like Andy Ruiz, Daniel Dubois, maybe even Joe Joyce. Even Joe Joyce is like 100 years old. I don't care. I think it'd be an interesting fight. But give me somebody sooner than later because we got to figure out just how good Jared Anderson is.
Well, of course, before we do any of that, he's got to get through Charles Martin first. This Saturday at the Huntington Center in Toledo, Ohio on ESPN+. So let's just get a prediction for that fight. Who do you got and how's it going to happen?
I like Big Baby to splatter Prince Charles in less than 3 rounds.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out more colorful words about destroying somebody. That's all I'm trying to figure out. What's the most colorful word I can use for devastation? Jared Anderson by absolute and utter annihilation, where we have to put the parental advisory over the screen, finishes Charles Martin. I think he gets him out of there in about 3 to 4 rounds. Charles Martin ain't ready for that.
Well, we'll have to see on Saturday night. But in the meantime, please get ready for the 25 under 25 full list that will be posted on sportingnews.com on Thursday. In the meantime, you can follow us on social, check out all of the videos that we have profiling all of these extremely talented and young fighters who are going to continue to shake up the boxing world. Hopefully, I say that, but then Teofimo Lopez retired. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Until then, we'll see you next week here on Fighting Words. I'm Karisa Maxwell for Tom Gray and Andreas Hale. Check out our 25 under 25.